How's it? Welcome to Mongoose Max Hawaii channel. And it's the day after Christmas, December 26, 2020. And the year is winding down. This series is newspaper. And basically, what we have in newspaper is we look at the newspaper and I drink coffee and I make spoofs on it. But this wackiness. So let's just try to get newsy, because I've seen a big article in here and we might want to get to it. First off, there's been a big explosion, of course, in Nashville, Tennessee. And if we look at this, and I gotta start this. Jeez. Nothing like forgetting something. Okay, so I'm gonna do this and start that. Sorry about the pause. 1, 2, 3. So now we have the scroll of the online paper. So if we look here, get everything rolling. Jeez, what else did I forget? So yeah, they're a one-man show. Anyways, the explosion rocks Nashville. Now, this happened on Christmas Day, and I guess I'll show the other picture because I glanced at the paper. Apparently, here's this RV type thing. It's parked. If you look at one picture, it's like next to a Hooters. I'm not saying anything about Hooters, but it's like basically it's a titty bar. So it's kind of like a upscale, a little bit PG-13 titty bar, but it's still like that. In Nashville, this is like a downtown type of area, and there's this RV planted there. And then just before, there's a radio that comes out of the RV on a recorded announcement: evacuate, evacuate, everybody evacuate. And then the explosion happened, and 4 people were injured in some degree, but it wasn't like the fatal giant death toll fatal event. And yet they also found human remains, I'm going to say reportedly, in that remains of that blown up RV, which kind of made a big giant plume of smoke and damaged some buildings, pretty much exterior. It's not like giant earth building taken down thing. So the human remains inside that thing. Now, is it the bomber? I'm thinking, I don't think so. My little detective hat, I'm just going to say, my dear Watson, it is something. I think it's a homicide cover-up. Somebody killed somebody. And that big elaborate thing was a cover-up to dispose of corpus delicti, which is one of those things. Is like, if you can't produce a body, you don't got much of a case. See if that comes out. But it's tragic because of the freaky things that are happening. Freaky things happening. Average case total, 99. Hawaii's going down the tubes with these numbers. Positivity rate of new cases, 4.5%. That's up, which is really bad. And statewide, it's like 120 cases. Dad, you're begging for tier 1. And it's gotta be holiday season stuff, eh? So, hey, it's... I just noticed this. Okay, I'm gonna zip onto this one, because I was part of this Red Hill thing with giant containments of jet fuel up in the thing. Regulators rejected key parts of the plan to improve. Navy responded that it continues to firmly believe that its repair proposal, keeping the single well tanks, their single well repair is BS because it's going to cost so much. So the regulators rejected the Navy saying, we got it, we'll put a Band-Aid on it. And they're saying no. So that's a good thing. And it's millions of dollars. And here's Kilauea, Brian and Boom on Christmas morning. And Christmas Day, and Christmas Day. Yeah. Okay, whoosh in the morning, and by the afternoon and the evening it tapered off. Yeah. So, okay, so let's move along and see what was here. Back in the day, a bunch of people protested about gun control in Hawaii. Gun control in Hawaii is pretty stiff. It's a long-term democratic state, and so there's a lot of regulations on gun control. And then they added some, I think I remember this, it was like when the automatic rifles were considered, I can have M16, that sort of thing, and the deliveries of multiple things. And then they are protesting in 81. Okay, well, whatever you think about that. Guns be guns. Unemployment benefits lapsed today, so all that stuff that the government's going to plan to shut down and you're not going to do nothing, so all this stuff's going to come to a screeching halt. So I say take a deep breath and wait. Don't turn blue. There it is, rock bed explosion. And are you tired of seeing big smoky pictures of Kilauea? Here it is, it's still smoking up. Notice the skull, I put batteries back in it. That's why it was doing the dim thing. I'll tell you, man. Just put batteries in this thing and it's revved up and raring to go. Some Halloween decorations are timeless. All year round. Corona puts a damper in the holiday season. Yeah, tell me something I don't know. And this guy, Pearl Harbor, 3 wars. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to go over here and read this thing a little bit because this is an amazing person who passed away. Okay, Robert Thacker found himself caught in the middle of a Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor when he was piloting an unarmed B-17 bomber to Hawaii for refueling, but managed to keep the hair-raising landing and went on to a distinguished flying career. War and peace died to his home at 102 in San Clemente, and his daughters was riding in Oahu, every place. He faced success in battle. He was 17. Okay, so one of the fighters shot out the front landing gear of his flying fortress as he approached the runway, but he careened to a landing and let his crew to a swamp alongside the runway to escape the inferno. And then he went on for, it says here, in 3 wars. So I guess Korea and stuff. Okay, we're going to go quickly to the political cartoon and then skip forward. Here's new Joe Cool Biden. Some assembly required for the USA. Ain't it the truth? They try. Okay. I'm gonna rip because Kawhi left out of vacation rentals. Oh, and somebody with a. Yeah, this is great. 120 new cases, and right above, let's barbecue with no masks. Then there's the big Q. Let's get the big Q out of the way because there's weird stuff in the works. Hopefully today. What do you think about President Donald Trump's demand for COVID-19 relief payouts to be increased to $2,000 from $600 per person? That's that personal check, right? 6% not sure. Good job. Political polls. I don't blame you for saying not sure. 18% and amount between would be better. 20% bad idea. 2,000 too much. 56% good idea. $600 isn't enough. So there's a discrepancy. 20% bad idea, 2,000 is too much. And then 56, good idea, $600 is too less. That's what's called an inconsistency bias, and that's like BS. It's bogus. So the political Q, big Q is right out the freaking window. Octopus's pack a punch. And my sister's outside, so I don't like that. When did octopus pack a punch and fish burst out laughing? Octopus wound up and punched a fish. And he laughed because there was a problem because of scuba diving in the Red Sea. He nearly choked on his dive. Because he was scuba diving in the Red Sea and nearly choked on his diving regulator. Wait. Oh, he started laughing and he almost choked on his regulator because of scuba diving. Hey, when I was a safety diver, I learned how to scuba dive, and I was a scuba diver for about 2 years. I did safety diving. The guy that's just watching you guys learn how to scuba dive, and we're in the open ocean, the guy went underneath a big boulder, master diver. Tentacle came out the other side. I tickled the tentacle, because you tickle an octopus with a stick, it wraps on the stick and you pull it out the hole. Trick. And so I didn't have a stick, so I tickled the tentacle and it wrapped around my hand. I pulled the octopus out of the hand. The octopus wrapped around my face. It was about 44 feet deep. And then it started to pull the regulator out of my mouth. And it started to push on my mask. It was filling up full of water. I was going to make an emergency free ascent. This was a very scary thing, but then the master diver came in and pulled the octopus off my face. I had hickey suction cups on my face after that close call with an octopus. It was a trauma, so I thought I'd tell you, because today is trauma day. Retailers place for Halloween flood. This is like supposed to be the big freaking shopping day, right? Oh, Christmas specials. Okay, but we're still gonna go rapidly through because we got something to look at. Yay, football. We're coupon day. Get your sleep. The things, phrases for 2020. The one I didn't know, just like PPE, the things you already know, they're just like terms. The one I didn't know was doom scrolling. That's when you're looking for all the bad stuff in the news, which we're going to do today. So we're doom scrolling today. But it's not really doom scrolling. It's just not so much good stuff going on today. All right. But you're in photos. Oh, we're not going there. Thank you, frontliners, front people doing front stuff. Okay, I gotta find this now. Oh man. Excuse me. Something pissy this way comes. Okay, there's all the personal letters to the editor, but then there's the people who are editors, right? They write the actual editorials, and then the letters to the editor respond to the editorial articles. So this is like one of those editorial articles. Okay, this guy's out of, what the frick, the Tribune. So I don't know what Tribune it is. Chicago, LA Tribune, who knows? One of the Tribunes, I suppose. Or basically just the giant Tribune is the Tribune. So here we go with this. Let's make sure all the stuff is on, Listen to science becomes weaponized political term. The reason I disagree with this muckraking is because it's just stirring up a bunch of junk. It's not muckraking. I'm exposing bad things. It's creating, you'll see. So science, yes, listen to science. But it says listen to science becomes a weaponized political term. Already weaponized. Behold science, the sword and shield of progressivism. This guy's bias. He's already, you can tell he's on the conservative bias. Over the course of the pandemic, for that debates, climate change, stem cells, all these issues thrown in the bucket. Liberals meaning Democrats, have insisted that we must listen to science and heed the scientists. So they are saying we have to listen to the scientists. It was a cornerstone of President-elect Joe Biden's campaign and constant refrain of Donald Trump critics. So the listen to science was used against Trump. Duh. Taken literally, I endorse the phrase listen to science. So he sides with the, yeah, listen to science, I can't really argue with that. Then he goes on. Scientists have important things to say, blah, blah. Let's not forget that in a democracy, voters are policymakers too. Voters are policymakers too. Touching on the reader. A well-informed electorate is useful to check on ill-informed politicians. The problem, however, is that the people who say, listen to science, though the people tend to mean it figuratively and worse, intermittently. Now, he brings up the racial stuff, okay? There's a lot of bad racial things that didn't address racism in America or in general that much. I touched on it because I don't think you can totally eradicate things, and I don't think you can change what people think and feel. But you can keep it out of the institution, the system. In the aftermath of George Floyd's killing in May, the I Can't Breathe guy, massive protests, met by them, against racism and police brutality erupted across the nation. Of course, this is the point of the protest, at least most of them, was noble and understandable, so he's siding with it. But the same champions of science suddenly changed their tune about the mass gatherings because this was a good cause. A good cause protesting against bad thing. But of course the protests went bad into rioting, and even the proponents against that racism were saying protesters don't riot. In a pluralistic society, the definition of a good cause is going to vary. So now he's like throwing in, it's just telling people they can't see their dying parents all the time. You can't see your dying parents, you can't go to the funeral, you can't make a living, which is the key point because he's on that side. It's too risky that protesting, but that protesting a systematic racism, police brutality is okay. So when some people have said that it's okay to protest, and risk the virus because it's so important, he's attacking that. Listen to the science is a weaponized political term, not a universal apolitical standard. Indeed, liberals handed Trump precisely the kind of foil he wanted. So they're saying that the listen to science thing was something that they threw in front of Trump, and Trump picked it up and started wielding it, no fault of his own. Because Trump would say into packed crowds that they don't want you to go to church or school. They don't want you to go to sporting events, but they think social justices are fine. He even started calling his rallies protests. His rallies are protests now, right? To highlight the double standard. Some epidemiologists made it worse by stepping out of their lanes. Now he's going for the scientists. We should always evaluate the risks and benefits to control the virus, says Jennifer Nuzzo, epidemiologist. John Hopkins posted on Twitter, no less, and declared on Twitter, this epidemiologist, in this moment of public health risks of not protesting to demand an end to systematic racism greatly exceeds the harms of the virus. So go and demand an end for racism, F the virus, was an epidemiologist on Twitter. I'm open to the idea that protests this summer, this guy, Editorial, could have ended racism. He's open to the idea that the protests could have ended racism, but the benefits would outweigh the risks. The benefits would outweigh the risks. Now, he's open to the idea that protests would end racism. Personally, I'm saying no. Protests will not end racism. That's my opinion. But it's not going to end it. You can't really end racism. There's always going to be something there. No one on this earth is completely unracist in a sense, because they all have identities of who they are, and other people are different. And the amount of hate they put behind such things, such differences, then they can target people with hatred. There's where you get problems. And when that people come together in groups and they target other groups with hatred, that's when it comes to a greater problem. And then it goes into the system where it's like laws and rules, and you can't eat at my restaurant and you can't be buried in my cemetery. That's what's called systematic or institutionalized discrimination, or racism based on race, or other groups too, because other groups it's bigotry. Now, what happens when you do a protest? It's not completely bad if you do a peaceful protest. If you riot, you spoil it. But if you have a peaceful protest with large numbers, you draw attention to the problem. And you make a demonstration that no one can ignore. So things can progress to change. Things can progress to being different. Martin Luther King, Million Man March. I don't know what it was about the rights to work, I think. Yeah. Jeez. What the heck? Anyways, there's Martin Luther King stuff, right? He didn't end racism, and I don't think he was hoping I have a dream, right? In an ideal world, yeah. But in reality, it's a movement towards focusing on a large attention to the problem. But once you go riot, it spoils it. But this guy's saying, I'm open to the idea because he's counteracting the viewer's reading. All right, we're getting too much on this. I trust the epidemiologists to explain, wherever evidence of such outcome is reality. I trust epidemiologists to explain how epidemiology works. Like, oh yeah, okay, use the science for the scientists. But the transitive property, so he's using algebra. If you multiply 1 by any number, you get 1, that number. The transitive property of their expertise. So they're scientists. They're doing scientists. So it's like a scientist with an opinion. It doesn't mean their opinion isn't any greater because they're a scientist. I agree with that. The opinion with the protest should come out closer to eradicating the system of racism. This is just that, an opinion. So I agree with that. So he throws out that you agree with. Moreover, the opinion of medical scientists in such matters has no more authority than another. It's an opinion on racism. It's not an opinion on the virus. Which brings to this point, again, politicians should listen to scientists about science matters. I agree. But they don't listen to scientists about science matters. Get it, dumbass? They're not listening to the reality and the science and the truth of the things about the pandemic. And he's trying to flip it over on other issues. The big one, racism and police brutality. By the end of the day, we must consider factors outside science. So he's opening doors for his stuff to come in. But it's not only fine and unavoidable. Using the phrase listen to science is a shield for your preferred policies and as an attack on policies you dislike. That's his point. You're going to be listen to science is true. But if you will listen to science and we're going to put our political agenda under this banner and you have to believe everything we say because listen to us because we are science. This is stupid. But it's also divisive. Will undermine credibility of scientists and politicians alike. Now that we're entering the vaccine chapter, oh my God, he's going to talk about the vaccine now. The chapter of this horrible story, at the same time, and the same science worshippers are in effect telling, I think I just said bye-bye to that camera, telling in effect scientists to listen to politics. In California, there's an effort to factor in historical justice. So some people in California, when the vaccine rolls out, they want to have kind of a type of reparation with it. Because indigenous Americans were treated so poorly, they should be higher up on the list and get the vaccine first, that kind of thing. Then a similar argument goes on its tails. She's saying, well, the elderly are mostly white, and they're most likely to die from the vaccine. But they should be moved down the list because they're whiteys And whiteys in the past have gotten the privileged white idea. So because they were privileged white in the past, that's why they were able to live this long. So even though they're most susceptible to the virus, they should be knocked down a little bit because, screw them, they're whiteys. They had their chance. Dump the elderly under the bus because of their ideas. Oh my God. Society is structured in a way that enables them to live longer, blah, 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 this guy's opinion. Scientists are free to make such arguments, but these aren't scientific arguments. No, they're not. They're political opinions. They're political opinions from a crazy person. Well, that's why political opinions, bull crappo. Because right there was that thing, and to end that thing is just Jonah Goldberg is saying politicians and scientists at the end of the day must consider factors outside science. He's wishy-washying it, but he's promoting the ideals behind the Black Lives Matter being squashed. He really is doing that. He's wishy-washying between, those things are true, but at the end of the day, you can't use science as an authority, because you're using it to promote your decisions, and it's not fair. And he's pointing out the worst of the worst. Them, us, and them, the divisive stuff, the not listening to reality and truths, and to downplay that, or to upplay, some ideas of certain individuals, which are, just as cuckoo, then there's, anyways, enough of that. So, this guy is that's the kind, watch out when you read that stuff, because it'll drive you crazy. It's like a lie that's sprinkled with truths, so you kind of go, yeah, and you start believing the lie. It's something like crazy like that. All right, so this is going to be long, but too bad. The end of the year is coming up, and I tell you what, Mongoose Max Hawaii is going to probably be changing radically. So those are big ones. This is what I'm saying. I read these editorials. They are opinions of people, and that's why I like them. But those professional editorial writers, those are the real editorials. These are letters to the editor. So I'm just saying, there's political science out there. Use your noggin, be informed, and stay light. That's the hang loose. Now, let's go to our... Sorry about that main feature, but that's the stuff that's out there. Beware. Now, letters to the editor. Politicians, we got 3 of them here. Let's just get in. Politicians should exasperate pandemic in the U.S. Politicians exasperate the pandemic in the U.S. Mark Thiessen is off the mark again with his article in December 18th. All of the credit for any vaccine must and should go to the scientists. No politician should get any credit for any COVID-19 vaccine. I do not agree with Thiessen's statement about all Trump's flaws in managing the pandemic. The mass gatherings, no mask, no social distancing, no quarantine when infected, not listening to mainstream scientists, not governing with science-based policies. Who is exasperating the pandemic in the U.S.? A lot of politicians. Milton Nita, Pro City. Yeah. T-Rex toenail, looking good. Test the scientists about COVID-19 spread. This pandemic is about to quickly hit a year old. So far, the scientists have been correct for the most part. They have been correct regarding the increase of cases over majority after major holidays, the importance of mask wearing, keeping social distance and avoiding large gatherings. If you still don't believe in science, just remember that what happened at the White House during the holiday season, there are numerous temptations to gather and celebrate. No pilolo, just no go. No pilolo, just no go. And we can all return to normalcy sooner. Mahi ala moana. The pigeon quote saved it at the end. Yes, I agree with you though. Inauguration day will be palindrome. The inauguration on January 20th, 2021 will be unique in 3 ways. The age of the president, the gender of the vice president, and the way the date is written numerically. Both the short version, 1/20/21, and the long version, 1/20/2021, read the same way from the left to right and right to left. They are both palindromes. It may be that the inauguration day will be the only date on the calendar that is doubly palindromic. Victor Myers, thank you. He's from Kilauea, and he's got a Mayan calendar. Loving it though. You just gotta love it. You just gotta like that kind of stuff. Anyways, so there it is. I think the T-Rex Toenail Award goes to the guy built-in exasperation guy. Have a wonderful day, and remember, hang loose and aloha. Wait a minute. Sudoku. Hang loose, aloha.